The transfer window has finally finished and we are ready to delve into who had the best transfer window in the Premier League. It's been a lot of good signings, some big ones, some not so big ones, but we're going to have a look at them now. At long last, the transfer window is shut. I'm going to rank them A to F. I don't know if anyone got an F in my calculations, but we'll go to E. You have to have an absolute stinker to have an F. But yeah, we're going to start with Arsenal, and now you can see I'm an Arsenal fan, but I don't think we've had an A window. I would put us B. Now, the signing of Rice, obviously huge price tag, 105 million. Record breaking for a few days until Caicedo went to Chelsea.
Had it up on the wall for 2 weeks. He's come down already.
I'm kind of glad that he's not the British record signing now, because it's a lot of pressure on him, which I know some players love, but I mean, I'm kind of fine with him not being the most expensive. Havertz is an interesting signing. Not too sure about that. Don't know if he will work out. We will see what Arteta has planned for him, because surely he has something planned for him. We just need to hope that it works. If it doesn't, it's a massive L. During Timber, I was a big fan of. I think every Arsenal fan was a big fan of. Sadly got that big injury in the first game. So yeah, we can't really judge it. It's kind of annoying. I think this would be an A window for Arsenal if it wasn't for that injury. But because he got injured, and we haven't replaced that injury, I can't rate it more than the B. No chance. I think letting go of Tierney, Tavares, Holding, all these defensive options, Trusty as well to Sheffield United. I mean, all of them you can kind of say a deadwood, bar maybe Tierney. But that was cover. That was defensive cover. Now, if we do get injuries at the back, like we did last season, we had Zinchenko out for long periods. We had Tomiyasu out for long periods. We had Saliba out for a long period at the end of the season, which halted us. If we get any of them, we're screwed. So, for that reason, it's a B. Obviously, David Raya, special mention. Good signing as well. And next up, we have Aston Villa. We're going alphabetically here. We're going to start with Diaby on the wing. What a signing. What a great signing for Villa. I think a lot of big clubs were in for him. No offense, Villa, but like I was thinking more of a top 6 club would go for him. So the fact that he's went to Aston Villa, I think, is a huge pull. And yeah, I think him alone puts them very high in this list. I'm going to give them an A. They've also made some other big signings. Obviously, Tielemans right at the start. Brilliant cover and like depth in the midfield. Also, Mings got injured right at the start of the season, similar to Timber. Long term, what do? They bring in Langley. I mean, come on, man. They already have Pau Torres in there, who I think could be good. He's had a bit of a rough start, I would say. Aston Villa actually haven't been as good as I think a lot of people thought they would be at the start of the season. But I think they'll pick up. I think they'll be fine. I don't think they'll do anything special. But in terms of transfer windows, it's an A for me. On to Bournemouth now, and I don't hate Bournemouth's window. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I think signing Max Aarons, that was a good little signing. Good potential. It's still very young, quite raw. But I think he will do a decent enough job for him. He's very Bournemouth. Cliver and Tyler Adams, I think, brilliant signings. I think they brought in Sinistera on loan as well, which is, again, a decent little signing. I mean, taking a lot of players from Leeds. A lot of these teams are. So, yeah, I think they're going to do well. But obviously, they lost Lerma on a free, which I think puts them down in this list. I think they would have been around a B. I'm actually going to put them at a C because I don't think the quality that they brought in really elevates them much from last year. But I think it's solid business, but nothing special. Now we're going to go to Brentford. You know what? It was almost horrible. It was almost a very bad rating for Brentford. With Tony going out, I was worried about them, but Mbeumo and Risa have done brilliantly at the start of this season. They brought in Mopé on loan. Now, all I've got for this is it's interesting. It's an interesting strategy. Don't think it's the worst strategy. He could get goals. I think it's solid, but I don't necessarily like the signing overall. As well, when Tony's back, what happens to Mope is he just chucked away. They've got like 3 solid strikers then. But overall, I don't think they brought in enough quality in this window. I think Nathan Collins, a special mention, I think is a solid defender. I think he'll do well for them. But I can't rate him more than the C because I just don't think it's been that good. And now we move on to the big boys, Brighton. And yes, I say big boys because they are moving like big boys. Dahoud, João Pedro, and the big one, Ansu Fati. I mean, it's exceptional business, especially they're getting rid of these players on massive deals every single window, and it's not affecting them. I mean, the start of this season has been phenomenal from Brighton. I haven't seen anything like this. It's just, they're blowing some teams away. And with the players that they've lost in McAllister, in Caicedo, you'd think they'd struggle a little bit. Even getting rid of Sanchez in goal, I think was like risky. But so far, they've been fine with it. But they haven't actually brought in that many players. But I just think the quality they brought in and the sales they've done on top of how well they've started this season, I have to put them in A for that. I mean, full credit to Brighton. They're doing well. Quick one with Burnley, but they signed in Burge from Sheffield United. I think that's a great signing in terms of they're taking a big player from one of their rivals. Big loss for Sheffield United, that, and we'll get onto them later, but that doesn't help them in this window. I've got to say, Ramsey is a very good addition. I think he'll suit the Burnley kind of play style that I've been seeing this season. I do think they'll be alright, but I don't think they're going to be as good as some people kind of thought they would be at the beginning of the season. And for that reason, they're going to have a C. Next up, we have Chelsea. Now, where do we start with Chelsea? I mean, where do I start? They've signed enough for every single team in the Premier League. You could do a video just on Chelsea signings, and for that reason, we're not going to go through like every single one. Barely any, to be honest. I mean, Caicedo, a huge deal. Lavia as well. They've signed in players with potential, is what I would say. They signed in players with potential. Nicholas Jackson up front as well. Another one who could be brilliant, but you just never know. Caicedo's had one big season in the Premier League. They've signed him for 115 million, and now it just has to work. Enzo, again, he had like one big season, brought him in for 100 million. It has to work, man. It has to work. These players they're signing in, if it was down to potential, they would be in the A category. I have to put them in B, I think, because it's just been a bit all over the place. They've been signing loads and loads of players. They've got rid of a lot of players as well. Havertz, Kovacic, Kante, Mount. I mean, the list just goes on. And I think because it's such a shift, I can't give them an A because I just don't think it's going to help them this season. And we've seen it already at the start of this season with the fixtures. They haven't been the best. Obviously, they'll probably get better as it goes through. But yeah, I don't know, man. I just look at their team. And currently, I know they have a couple injuries, but I mean, come on, you've spent $1 billion. Why is your team not that good? Now let's move on to Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace, I'm going to give a C. I think them getting rid of Zaha was a massive blow. I think them keeping Elise was a massive plus, because if Elise went as well as Zaha this window, I mean, you can't give them more than like an E. But I think keeping hold of Elise definitely helps. But I'll be real, I'm very underwhelmed with Crystal Palace's window. I think they haven't signed anyone with proper star qualities, at least not in my opinion. Rob Holding, I think, will be a solid experienced centre-back, but he's not going to take you to that next level. I think Palace could struggle this season. I know that they've kind of started alright, but yeah, in terms of window, I can't give them more than the C. Now we move on to Everton, probably the worst so far in terms of transfer windows. Shockingly, they got rid of Iwobi to Fulham. They got rid of Mopai. They loaned him out to Brentford. Again, these are kind of teams who they could be competing with in terms of staying up and just fighting for more places. So I don't know why they're strengthening them with such key players to them. I mean, Mopai, I guess, wasn't key, but Iwobi last season was their only good player. All I can say is their new striker, Beto, needs to hit the ground running. He needs to adjust quick, because If he doesn't, I don't know who's scoring many goals in this team at the moment. I think Harrison is a decent little loan deal. But again, I think they've let go of too many players and not replaced them sufficiently. I could really see them struggling this season, and I think it could be the year they go down. It could be. And for that reason, I have to give it an E. Hopefully, Everton fans, you don't hate me for that. But, I mean, you need to do something in January, I feel like, because it's not looking good right now. Speaking of Iwobi going to Fulham, let's go on to Fulham now. And, I mean, not a bad window for him. Not the worst. I mean, Jimenez... Okay, I don't like Fulham's window. I think Mitrovic going and Jimenez coming in just wasn't the deal for me. I mean, I don't mind Jimenez. I think he was great like a few seasons back. Before his injury, he was just flying. But I just don't see him being the guy that Fulham need right now. I think Paulinho, being able to keep hold of him is huge. And that's the only reason I'm not giving them an E. And I'll give them a D. And that is mainly it. But also I can't rate them lower than a D. Because, I mean, Iwobi is a decent little bit of business. And Adama Traore as well. Also not a bad little addition to the squad. And now we move on to Liverpool. Now there's been a lot of chop and change at Liverpool this summer. Obviously you've seen literally the entire midfield just like being chucked out. Oxlade-Chamberlain, Henderson, Milner, Keita. They're just all gone. And they've had to replace him. They've replaced him with McAllister. Gravenbeck is the newest addition. Szoboszlai. Hungarian Gerard, I've been seeing quoted about him, and what's the other one? Endo as well. I don't think they're bad additions. Endo for me isn't what they need. They needed a proper defensive mid for me. I think Gravenbeck is a good addition, but he's not a defensive mid. He's more box to box, similar to McAllister in that. I don't know. I think if they can get it to work, it'll be good. I can't rate them an A though. I can't rate them an A. I'm just looking at this now. I'm gonna have to put them in B because I didn't sign another defender, another centre back mainly. I think when Liverpool have issues at the back, they just don't have depth there, like ever. And I think that was something they needed to address. I get they needed a midfield badly, and I think they've sorted that, but. Yeah, I think in terms of windows, I'm going to give them a B. Now, Luton, I don't really know too much about, but I do know that Chong is a solid signing. I think formerly Man United, but he just came from Birmingham City. He's meant to be very good. I've spoken to a Birmingham fan, and apparently he was balling out. So I think he'll be a good addition to Luton. Also, Nakamba from Aston Villa. A solid signing. But this is the kind of thing where I can't really rate them on, oh, you haven't spent this amount. Because it's Luton, I mean, they don't have the funds that these other teams have. So I'm going to rate them a D because I do think they brought in some decent players, but I don't think it's enough to keep them up. Also, a special mention, actually, Sambi Lokonga. I don't think he's the kind of player that they really need. He doesn't have loads of Premier League experience. He hasn't even played that much recently. We'll see how that goes. If he plays every game, I can only see him getting better. He's got a lot of potential, but yeah, I can't rate it high. I'm sorry, Luton. Now, Man City. I'm gonna rate them an A, man. I think they've done really well. I think it's been a slow burner with City. I think signing in Kovacic was big. They obviously lost the likes of Gundogan. They lost Mahrez. These are big players from Laporte went as well. I was a bit nervous. I can't lie. I was a bit nervous for City in a weird way because I saw all these big names going and I wasn't seeing too much coming in. Kovacic, I think, covers the midfield a fairly good amount, but he doesn't get the goals Gundogan does. I think signing in Doku was a smart move. I think he'll provide a different kind of winger for Pep, which I don't really have at the moment. Someone who's like properly bursting past players. Probably not since like Sane, I'd say. And then Gvardiol as well. I think Gvardiol is a player with big potential, but also can be a massive player for them now. He doesn't need like 4 or 5 seasons to get good. I think he could just be good now. And then the newest signing, who hasn't played yet, is Nunes from Wolves. Another signing that I'm like, you know what, goes under the radar. That is a very good bit of business. and I feel like he'll do quite well in the City system. And now to the other side of Manchester, and that's Man United. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed with their transfer window, to be honest. We saw Elanga go out to Forest. We saw Mount come in. I think barring maybe Amrabat and Onana, I think they're decent players. I think Mount is a big risk. I think he'll work hard, but I think that's about it. Højlund is just going to be too risky for me again. I think he could be a good striker. He came in and he was injured for the first few games. Came in against Arsenal. He done all right. He looked like he wanted to do something, which is kind of what they're after. So you never know. But they signed in Johnny Evans. Like, I'm not sure about that. They then signed in Reguilon from Spurs. I mean, it doesn't excite me. They kept Maguire as well. For me, they're a C, man. I don't think they had a good transfer window at all. I think they needed like a proper striker for now. I think they needed another midfielder. I think they needed more defenders in there, a couple more centre-backs possibly, because Varane is getting on a little bit. And, you know, like Martinez has that kind of disciplinary issue now and again. Yeah, for me, it's not a good window. Newcastle are next with Tonali. They've got Livramento. They've got Harvey Barnes. They've got Lewis Hall. Is kind of another one that went under the radar. I think it's a solid window from Newcastle. I can't lie. I don't think they've lost like major quality. Maybe some Maximan, but I don't think he was anywhere near what we've seen from him last season. So realistically, it's not the biggest loss. I think overall they've done really well. They've done very good business. I was actually surprised they didn't buy more though. I was actually going to give them an A for this. But I might actually drop that to a B because I'm kind of looking at Newcastle and I'm like, I know you're on the verge of being this huge club, this like title challenging club. Buy a couple more big names in there. I don't know, like they're buying a few players, but for the amount of money, like they've got unlimited resources. I'm watching Chelsea going mad. I get that. Newcastle don't want to fall into that trap. I feel like they could have done better. I feel like they could have been more ambitious this transfer window, especially with Champions League, and they didn't for me. So I'm going to put them a B. Now, Nottingham Forest is an interesting one. Again, they have been very busy, just like last summer. They've signed in a bunch of players, let a bunch go. It's interesting. I mean, Brennan Johnson was a big loss, in my opinion. They've signed in a couple Arsenal boys, Matt Turner in goal, Tavares on loan, who I think actually will do quite well for them. Callum Hudson-Odoi was an interesting signing. I think, again, he could be solid. You never know with Callum Hudson-Odoi. He could hit, he could miss. We'll see what happens there. But the real player I want to hone in on is Elanga from Man United. He's a big prospect. And you're seeing already, he scored against Chelsea the other day. He's a player who looks really promising, and I think in this Nottingham Forest side, he could really shine. So for that reason, I'm going to put Nottingham Forest at a B. Now let's move on to Sheffield United, and instantly straight off the bat, put them in E. Put them with Everton, man. Put them with Everton because, I mean, they got rid of Sander Berge, one of their best players from last season, and gave him to a rival in Burnley. Like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? The likes of Tom Davis, Trusty, Slimani, they're not going to save him, man. They're not going to save him. I actually really like Sheffield United as a club, but for me, man, I don't like the business they've done. I'm sorry. I think McAtee, getting him back on loan from City was a good bit of business. I mean, it was fine. I don't think it was a hard deal to get done necessarily. But again, I can't rate him higher than an E. I just think they're buying players for the Championship next season. Moving on to Spurs. Now, I think Spurs had a very good transfer window. I think James Maddison, huge signing. I was actually a bit gutted because I actually would have liked him at my club one day. I mean, Odegaard is clear, don't get me wrong, but he's a quality player, Maddison, and I think Spurs done very well to get him in. Brennan Johnson's an interesting one. I think he's young, he's hungry. I think he'll do well with Spurs, annoyingly. But I think that was another good bit of business. For the others, like Van der Ven, Solomon, Vicario in goal, not too sure about them. A bit unknown for me. I haven't personally watched them very much, so I don't really know how they'll do. I know Van der Ven, I think, scored an own goal the other day. I'm just saying that as an Arsenal fan, just putting it out there. But I think it's been a very solid window if you're a Spurs fan. The only downside, and when I say a downside, I mean downside, is Harry Kane leaving. Now imagine this Spurs team that is cooking at the moment, by the way, with Harry Kane in the team. Maddison assisting Kane, Son assisting Kane. I mean, it would be going nuts, I think. So, Kane leaving, man, came at the wrong time, annoyingly. And for that reason, instead of an A, I'm going to have to give Spurs a B. And mainly it was just down to Kane leaving. Now moving on to West Ham. Now, I think if you asked me like a few weeks back, this would be a very different ranking. I think I would have put them probably like an E. Maybe a D, but probably an E. But to be honest, I've actually probably got to put them in A. I think the business they've done from Declan Rice leaving right at the start of summer, I think it took a long time for them to kind of get the ball moving. I think Alvarez is a shrewd bit of business from Ajax, and he could do well. I mean, I feel like I'm saying this player could do well every single time, so apologies, I was just repeating myself. But you just don't know with some of these like players who haven't played in the Premier League before. Ward-Prowse is the reason I'm putting them at A. I think Kudus as well. But going back to Ward-Prowse, I just think he's quality. I don't know why more teams weren't in for him. I think just having that ability from set pieces is just more than enough. I'm not a massive fan of Ward-Prowse in terms of during the game itself, like in terms of open play. Think he's still a baller, but it's just them set pieces, man. Just for that, it's brilliant. And I think Kudus on top of that is a very good goal scorer. I think he'll do well. So yeah, I'm going to put him in an A. And you may think I'm being generous there, and I might be, but hey, fair enough, West Ham. Thank you for Rice. Now, last up is Wolves. I'm going to quickly read out the players that have either got released or just been transferred out from Wolves this season. We've got Diego Costa, obviously didn't really hit the ground running, but still a big striker. João Moutinho, I mean, one of the crucial midfielders for Wolves. Ruben Neves, arguably Wolves' best player, leaving for the Saudi League, obviously. Nathan Collins, one of their main centre-backs. Connor Cody, one of their main centre-backs. Raul Jimenez, obviously a massive striker, even though he wasn't hitting the ground last season. Massive striker for him. Adama Traore, one of their like big threats up front. Again, mad. Gonzalo Guedes, who again I think had a really good season last year. Nunes, who's went to City now recently. Now I've just read out most of Wolves' best players from last year, and when I look at transfer ins, I mean it's not looking good, Wolves fans. I mean Matt Doherty is like the main one there. Yeah, I think it's the worst transfer window of the bunch. I think they've got really unlucky. I don't even think Wolves will do that badly this season. But now looking at this, maybe they will. Maybe they will. Anyway, guys, that is the transfer windows in the Premier League all ranked up for you. If you agree, let me know. If you disagree, let me know down below. Also, make sure to leave a like on this video. Massively, massively appreciated. And subscribe. Subscribe if you haven't already. Plenty of content coming up. So I will see you there. Cheers.